It is what intro?
Was that Kendrick or?
No,
Neil?
that was new.
I don't remember that.
Like, hello and welcome. It's super fun. Anyway.
Good morning, everybody. It's still morning time. It's 11:30. That means it's coffee and donut time because it's 11:30 on a Saturday morning. So I'm here with our two seminarians, Jumpin' Jehoshaphat. It's now on the internet.
I'm deleting this now.
Also known as Giuseppe, but his real name is Joseph.
It took you a while to get there.
Yeah. And then we have Mark over there on the right side. So on my right. We're going to do something a little bit different today. So we only have these guys for 2 more coffee and donut sessions and 1 more a week, a little over a week, right? And so today, Joseph is going to share with us his vocation story, which I haven't heard yet either, so I'll be listening intently also. But vocation stories are good things for us to hear also, just so that we can see even how God's working in people's lives, and the different ways in which people hear the Lord's voice speaking to them and letting them know what His will is for their life, their vocation in life, what it is that they're called to. And that's what obviously a vocation is, in case somebody doesn't know that. It's a calling that God gives to each one of us. And each of us has a calling, whether that's the priesthood, religious life, married life, whatever it might be. And then there's callings within that, the greater call towards particular work, right? Using the gifts that God has given to us to use those accordingly for the building up of His kingdom. But yeah, okay. So, Jumpin' Jehoshaphat. He hates that name, by the way.
The jumping part, especially.
He likes Jehoshaphat.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll just
A weird thing to get caught up on.
Jumping like that word does not apply to me at all. Like, I feel no connection with it.
Because you don't jump.
I mean,
Have you ever jumped?
yeah,
Oh.
I have hops, but I mean,
Oh. He has hops.
Anyway.
Is that for making a beer or for like dunking a basketball?
Oh, that's a bad one. Anyway.
All right, so Joseph is going to share with us his vocation story. So I'm going to just hand it over to you.
So,
I'm going to eat my banana bread.
oh yeah, that's the first time you'll be able to munch down on stuff.
I know,
Yeah.
during the coffee and donut session. It's not a donut, it's banana bread. It is.
Cop
To
out.
clarify.
Anyway, so the vocation story I'll give here isn't the full length feature. I need to keep it a little bit abbreviated for time.
We'd have to do a feature film for that.
Yes, soundtrack and everything.
Oh, nice.
Live animation. Anyway, I like to begin my vocation story.
You're not going to start with your great-great-grandmother, are you? And
No.
Work your way. Okay, I'm just
No.
making sure.
Um,
Go
I said it would be abbreviated. So anyway, I like to pin the beginning of my vocation story in the late 2nd grade. I was 8 years old, and one day the thought of being a priest just popped into my head. The reason why? Probably because I just got over a minor crush as a 2nd grader. So right out the gate, there you go. So I don't know what I was thinking, my 8.5-year-old brain. Well, that didn't work out. Maybe I'll be a priest. I don't know. Anyway, so the thought just popped up in my mind. I thought it was cool. And that was basically it for the 2nd grade. Fast forward a few years later, 4th, 5th grade, and it was about that time that I realized, wow, this thought of being a priest kept popping up in my head on its own. It wasn't me thinking about it. I knew it wouldn't be like something I'd daydream about a whole lot. The thought would just pop up into my head fairly frequently. And that clued me in that, maybe this thought has something significant to it. Maybe it's not just a passing fancy. This thing has been in my mind off and on for the past 2-3 years. And so that prompted me to really start thinking seriously, maybe I have something here. Maybe this is something that I should look into. So the summer entering fourth grade, I became an altar server at my home parish, St. Stephen the Martyr in Renton. My pastor shortly after found out about my aspirations to be a priest, even at that young of age, 10, 11 years old. My parents already knew about it from even before then. My mom likes to say I wanted to be a priest ever since I was maybe like 5, but I don't know.
You're doubting your mom?
Well,
On the internet,
oh,
she saw this.
love you, Mom. Well, I'll call you later today. Uh, so I became very involved in altar serving, even served daily mass when I could. And really, altar serving was very foundational for my discernment at that time. Being up there on the altar, close to the priest, seeing what goes on during the holy sacrifice of the Mass, it was, well, for a fourth and fifth grader, it was cool. Looking back now, it was much more significant than that. And so as the years went on, I enjoyed serving more and more, got more involved at my parish. After I was confirmed, I became a lector for our Life Team Mass, Eucharistic minister. And yeah, my parish involvement grew and grew, and I was even invited to be on the parish council during my senior year of high school because the council had just created 2 new positions called youth delegates because they wanted to have a more closer or direct connection to the younger generation of the parish, see what was going on, what they needed, what they wanted done. So I was one of the 2 asked to fill that position, and I accepted. And just being on the parish council gave me a lot of insight into parish life and especially the role of a priest within a parish, which further aided my discernment and gave it a little bit more dimension to it. Okay, the priest isn't just some sacramental functionary. Okay, he doesn't pop in for mass and pop out, and that's all you see him all day. That's not what.
That is what a lot of people actually think about a priest, though, that they celebrate mass and they go and do sacramental things, right? They're sort of a sacramental machine, but we're much more than that. Yep.
And just in case my pastor is watching, no, I did not have that impression of him even then. I never did. Father Ed, okay, we're clear on that.
He's just saying that because he's on camera with Father Ed White. Yeah. You know each other well. Go ahead.
No comment. But no, speaking about him, like my pastor was very much a strong influence for my vocation. Holy man, he and I didn't talk a whole lot. I don't remember about like discernment related things, how to discern, etc. But a lot of his help in my discernment was basically by his silent example. And that was very inspirational. I noticed it. It wasn't calling attention to himself, yet at the same time, it was meritorious, and that helped me realize, oh, wow, this whole priesthood thing really carries a lot of meaning to it, both to the individual priest himself and to all the people around him with whom he interacts with the parish community, and that further inspired my vocation even more to discern the priesthood. So entering high school, I went to Kennedy Catholic in Burien. One of the reasons I went there was because Father DeLessy, the vocations director, was also the chaplain stationed there. And so he and I got to become familiar with each other, and when I became an upperclassman, junior and senior year of high school, we started getting together about once a month for lunch during the school day, and we would chat about various things, proper ways of discernment, what a priest does, any aspect about a priest's life, and I would ask some questions and he would answer them, give me more information. next steps on how to discern, because for the most part at that point I was mainly discerning on my own, which is fairly normal for a young teenager, or just someone beginning their discernment journey. Um, it's it's mostly personal. I mean, other people know about it, sure, and they encourage you. I received a lot of support and encouragement from my parish community. Um, but anyway, as Father DeLacy and I kept chatting, and I was getting more information and more insight into the life of discernment, the life of a priest, what seminary looks like here and there, my interest grew and grew, and I felt at peace, really, in my discernment, that I was willing to say, yeah, I honestly think God does want me to God does will me to enter the seminary. And so after those years, in my senior year of high school, Father DeLacy handed me the application. The application isn't something that any guy can get. No, there's a vetting process beforehand, okay? You have to know the vocation director for at least a few years before that, so he knows you, and so not some random bro is popping up in his office. Yo, can I have the app? Who are you even? Anyway, that was Mark. No, just kidding.
No, that was not me. I don't call priests bro.
Father bro.
Such coolness. Anyway, and so to my delight,
When you're free, that's true.
Father DeLacy handed me the application, and I started filling it out. And at this time of my life, I was going through a very difficult time, not just academically, being a senior in high school. Also physically, I was dealing with a lot of sickness for several months during the school year. A lot of it centered around allergies and my immune system just going kind of haywire.
Are you sure it wasn't COVID? Sorry.
This is 2012, Father.
Sorry.
You started the application process in 2012?
Or 2016, sorry.
Okay, there we go. That's a little confused there.
Yeah. And one of the other difficulties I was facing was that at that time in my life, I was seriously in love with someone, with a very holy girl in high school. She and I were very good
I think
friends.
you just shocked Mark. Did you know that, Mark?
No, I didn't.
Oh,
I-
the look on his face is that he was surprised that he's never heard that story before.
All right,
Anyways,
anyway,
continue
continue.
I have feelings too.
Continue.
You can go.
Continue.
And so as I was saying, I was deeply in love with this girl, and she was serious about her faith, great person, smart, everything. And it presented this real challenge to me. I was having to make this huge decision, what the Greeks call the tragic exclusion, choosing between two great goods, entering the seminary or pursuing her. And I was like,
Academics.
where do I go, Lord? Like, both of these two things are very holy and good. What is your will? Yet there were many signs pointing me toward the seminary. One of which, I just wasn't completely at peace with pursuing this girl. Sure, my emotions were all caught up, like, yeah, I desire her in a holy way, yeah. But at the same time, something inside me was like, no, that can't be it. And that emotional struggle on top of the academic struggle, on top of this physical sickness, it all weighed down on me. And that really was a test of patience, of strength, of endurance for me. And there were a few times where I just wanted to throw up my hands and give up, like, Lord, I can't take this anymore. I'm too weak. I've gone on, struggled for this for so long. And all of these things, the sickness, the emotions, the academic struggle. Yet in each of those times, I received a small, subtle consolation, but it was enough that it was able to set me back on track and re-strengthen me for the journey of discernment and just getting through this all. Um, a couple of those times, it was in very, I would say, deep moments of despair, despairing um, that I would be able to get out of all these burdens and struggles, despairing that I wouldn't be able to discern the Lord's will, especially in regards to seminary or her, okay, priesthood or marriage. Yet, when I was tossing those two things in my head, a couple times I remember this thought coming in my mind on its own. It wasn't me thinking this, I didn't exert any mental effort at all. But this thought came into my mind at two separate occasions saying the same thing. She is not for you. You were made for something greater. And both of those times I was like, wow. You know, it carried some sort of significance for me and it strengthened me. It was a small reassurance. And that consolation, with the help of friends and other family carrying me through my difficulties, I was able to forge onward with the application process. Another detail of the struggle I was going through was my parents' home was undergoing some renovations, and the renovations kicked up a bunch of allergens, and we were getting a bunch of mold out of our house, and that sent my immune system into a tailspin, which was one of the physical struggles or sicknesses I had. So I had to go to my godmother's house, who lived close by, live with her for 6 months while I recovered. And one of the great things about living with her is that she had a tabernacle upstairs in her house. And as I had the application in hand, filling it out page by page, I would fill it out in front of the Blessed Sacrament, praying the whole way. Lord, is this your will? Like, flip this page. Okay, I have to get this information. Lord, is this your will? And through the whole time, I felt a sense of stability going about it. Sure, so many things in my life are up in the air, up in turmoil. I wouldn't know if I would fully recover in time to continue further in the application process with all the interviews and other parts of the vetting process. So much uncertainty in my life. College applications as well. But still, through the whole time, I felt this sense of peace, stability, and that was what encouraged me and ultimately let me know that, yeah, I'm on the right path. This is the Lord's will. That's one of the ways you can figure out if something you're doing is in accordance with the Lord's will or not, if it's accompanied by a sense of peace and stability, despite other distractions or burdens you might be facing. And I will admit, even at this time in my life, my prayer life, even though it was there, I was going to daily mass as much as I could when I was well enough to go out. But other than that, there wasn't a whole lot to my prayer life apart from that. So there was that kind of spiritual struggle as well. But still, like, I guess I held on just enough to make it through. And so I finished the application packet, that giant 40-page thing. Yeah, that was a struggle in and of itself.
That's a vetting out process too.
Yeah, talk about vetting process, gee. Had the, what do you call it, board interview or something?
Yeah.
Went through that, interviewed, psychological evaluation.
Which had like 1,000 questions to fill out. Those were like bubbles though, so it's not quite as long, but still like 700 to 1,000 questions.
You also have to meet with a psychologist.
Yeah,
We
for like 3 hours.
Yeah.
So
One of the questions on the psych exam. I've been across the Atlantic 40 times in the past year. True or false?
Really?
Okay.
That's a question?
That's what I remember.
I think you dreamed of that.
I don't know. Maybe my mind just made it up. But that's the sort of questions that are on the test. Is like, okay, you don't expect it.
You can be
Anyway.
assured that we're not crazy, probably.
Yes.
Probably.
Anyway, back on track. Sorry if I'm going here and there. So I completed the application process, had my psychological exam, interviews, board interviews, met with the Archbishop Sargent, and praise be to God. Upon looking upon the recommendation of the board and my application, he accepted me as a seminarian for this archdiocese. And now that I've been through 4 years of seminary, I've never looked back. It's been a great journey filled with peace, stability, and happiness, joy. Again, signs that I'm on the right path, that I'm in a place in my life that God wills me to be. I've never looked back, and now I'm entering the second phase of my seminary formation in theology.
Finished philosophy, going to theology.
Yes.
A breath of fresh air too, probably.
That's still school.
Joseph, thanks for sharing that. It's interesting to hear the way the Lord is constantly working within us also, and those things that tend not to go away, that those little tugs at our heart are important things for us to pay attention to in life as in a holy direction, right? To be paying attention to the promptings of the Holy Spirit there, to spend that time in prayer also, which I know Joseph to also be a prayerful man now. He talked about that struggle there too, in the high school years, it sounds like, and some of that. But going to daily mass also, I mean, those things help to strengthen and nourish a vocation and help us to be able to listen to the Lord's voice speaking to us also. So, yeah, the discernment, it sounds like, huh? And, yeah, both of you guys entered out of high school into the seminary also, which I would say is not as common, generally speaking, anymore, right?
Yeah.
But the both of you doing that, it's pretty impressive. But you had the strength to do that, right? And just in tune enough to the Lord's voice to be able to say yes in that moment. When so many people out of the secular world in particular are saying, I want to go and do my own thing, which is what I did, right? I wanted to go and do my own thing. I wasn't thinking about the priesthood at that point in my life either. I had thought about it when I was in second grade, but then didn't really think about it again after that. But, interesting. Thank you very much. Next week we'll hear also then from Marky Mark over there, and then we can make faces at him while he's. We didn't do that actually. I don't think, did we? Did we make faces? You made a.
I made a
couple of
surprise
expressions.
face,
Yeah,
but
surprise face.
that's just because I hadn't heard that part.
Yeah.
So
And Joseph handled our distractions very well, I thought.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay, so Mass, of course, this week, like normal. I know that there had been a new thing that the governor had released also in terms of a limit of 10 people, but the exemption there is also for religious organizations, religious gatherings. So, of course, we have the limit of 200 people within our county in particular, and because of the sizes of the church, it was either 200 or 25%, which for us, 25% of capacity would be 250. But so they say whichever is less. So 200 people for each of the masses. There are some things that we're trying to work out. I'm trying to get away also on an actual vacation rather than a quarantine. So that's the plan. Not this coming week, but a week from Monday, I'll be beginning a vacation also. So, and these guys will be leaving at about that same time. So, I think Joseph might be. He was talking about maybe staying for a few more days, but I think you've got a retreat to go get ready for. So, pray for Marky Mark over there too. He's got a 3-week silent retreat coming up. and Joseph transitioned there, also heading out to Mundelein, near Chicago in Illinois, where it's very cold in the winter, hot in the summer, cold in the winter. So, all right. Well, God bless both of you guys, and God bless all of you. Also, I hope that you learned something from listening to Joseph's story, and something maybe even for you. And this is something that's important, I think. Every young man and woman, everyone, should think about a vocation to the priesthood or religious life. It doesn't mean that you're called to that, but at least to stop and think, what's the Lord calling me to? Is he calling me to marriage, which is the majority of the cases? Huh? But is he calling me to priesthood and religious life? Is he calling me to something else for the sake of his kingdom, for the glory of God? In either case, it's for the glory of God, right? Whether that vocation is to marriage or priesthood or religious life. So, something for you to think about, encourage with your young people, also grandchildren, great-grandchildren, or your own children. All right. Have a great rest of the weekend, you guys, and we'll see you tonight or tomorrow probably. And then for those of you who are still unable to come to Mass, we're keeping you also all in our prayers. God bless.
So now you know.
You know,
And knowing is half the battle.
I'm probably not going to bring up any Greek stuff in my
I don't know
vocation
where I
story.
read that. I remember reading it somewhere. Maybe it was like to save 1,000 souls.
Maybe.
Maybe it was there.
I don't remember that, but there you go.
Did you read the book? Don't say that online.
It's a very
Father
valuable
Brian,
book.
lesson.
It's a very valuable book.
It is.